Hello, thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. If by doing this it provides comfort or insight to maybe a handful of people, then for me I have succeeded. I will be reading from paper throughout this video, so it will be far from entertaining, yet hopefully informative. The reason for this being that, for one, unless I'm recalling the artist or title of a song, a number plate or an old PlayStation password, my memory is really bad. And for two, I thought it was important for you to see my face, as I recently read a comment on another video of a lady who also had Asperges that stated, "You don't look like you've got Asperges." I wasn't aware that we were all meant to look alike, so here's my face. This is me. I'm Natalie, and at 31, I've recently been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. So firstly, I wanted to read to you a list that I've made that just explains the different things that make me me, things that I deal with in my day-to-day life, strategies that I have put in place to help me maintain as normal life as I can. And there might be things on here that others might be able to relate to, others might find some comfort in if they're questioning whether they may be on the spectrum somewhere and they're looking for guidance or support with that. It might prompt them to approach their doctors or somebody to try and get an assessment done. So I'll read the list to you now. It's quite a long list. As I say, there are just different things on here that make me me, things I struggle with, and different strategies that I put in place to manage those things. Okay, so one thing started from when I was really young. I've always been obsessed with numbers. So I think it started when I had my first mobile phone, and I paid particular interest to the keypad on the phone. So I would know that there were each number also represented several different letters, and I could tell you the letters that corresponded with each of those numbers. I've always had an interest in that, and now as an adult, and I did this when I was younger as well, but as an adult I still do it. When I'm out and I'm driving my car, I often make sentences out of the number plates that I can see in front of me whilst I'm driving, in relation to the numbers and the letters that I've got logged in my head from the mobile phone that I used to have when I was younger. So a letter, I might see a number on a number plate but correspond it with a letter instead of it actually being the number. It's a bit confusing, but there may be other people that do that too. I'm not sure. I talk a lot sometimes, and I struggle to realise when it's someone else's turn. Academically, I was always where I was expected to be for my age. I never really fell behind as such. I definitely struggled in school with many things, but I was able to keep up in school. I think that's partly why I wasn't kind of picked up on until a much later time, because I was struggling socially, but not so much academically. I don't understand sayings or expressions at all. I can't make things up. I can't play make-believe. For example, I've got children, and they ask me, they don't anymore, but at times in the past they've asked me to tell them make-up stories before bed, and I just can't do it. They've always got to have either real people in the story that I know, or they're about real experiences that we've had, because I just can't play pretend. I really struggle when things aren't real. I can't lie, and I'm very honest, which has resulted in me scrolling through lots of terms and conditions just so I can tick the box to confirm. I don't like silence at all. Sound provides me comfort, and without it I feel really anxious. I really like repetitive, like, background noises. If it's quiet, that really helps, and it really helps me to concentrate and focus. Sometimes I grunt or make noises if it's too quiet or if I'm feeling anxious. I struggle to take in information if it's being delivered to a group of people. And I think that's because I'm too distracted and like too busy trying to work out how other people are feeling or what they're thinking of me. So I kind of get lost and distracted in the room because I'm more focused on what's going on, how other people are feeling and how I'm presenting myself to other people, rather than what I'm actually meant to be learning about. I can read fictional storybooks, but after page 1 I won't be able to remember the story. I'm much more interested in non-fiction and can remember factual information much better. I love bright colours and they make me really happy. From my interior design choices to my clothing choices, I really like bright colours. If someone doesn't say my name first, I have no idea that they're talking to me. So unless I can see them clearly and they are within close proximity to me, as in if they're opposite me, facing me and looking directly at me, then I'm aware they're talking to me. However, if someone was to be sat next to me and it just be them and I in the room and they were attempting to have a conversation with me, I wouldn't be aware that they were talking to me unless they'd said Natalie first. And pauses in conversations. So pauses in conversations often end with me leaving the conversation and not recognising that the person is trying to continue to talk to me, often being told that I'm being ignorant. Though this isn't my intention, the name thing really does help. So if there's a pause in conversation, if that conversation then restarts, it's really beneficial to me if someone is to say my name first to get my attention that way. Otherwise I just generally have no idea. So I often read signs as well when I'm out doing normal day-to-day things, and instead of reading it as it is, often I read it and think about what it rhymes with rather than what the sign is actually saying. That happens quite a lot. I think in rhyme quite a lot. I love singing, and my days are so much brighter and productive when I've dedicated an hour or so to sing in the morning. Lists really help me, so ticking off a list adds routine and structure to my day, so it makes me much more productive and I feel much more settled once I've done that as well. Music is really therapeutic for me, always has been, and is a big part of my everyday life. I've got a really black and white way of thinking, very literal, and I've got very strong feelings about what is right and what is wrong. I gain a lot of comfort from repetitive sounds. So for example, on YouTube they have like thunderstorm music, and I really enjoy listening to that. And also they have like the sound of a hairdryer that you can just put on repeat and it just plays the same sound over and over again for a really long time, and that's brilliant too. For me, that really helps. Or if not, having a fan on in a room really fulfills my sensory needs too. I think the sensation of being able to feel it and hear it, and again it's repetitive, that really helps. Also, I've only learned what I've been directly told. Now that might seem silly, but what I mean by that is I don't really take notice of my surroundings in the same way that some other people might do. So rules are very important to me and they're really helpful. But fortunately I've been lucky enough to have been guided by thoughtful and loving parents growing up, which has really helped. But I literally only know what I've been told, so that I know how to behave in society through what I've been told and what I've learned growing up. I'm very clumsy, always have been. I find eye contact very uncomfortable. I try to cling on to those people who I feel understand me or are of a similar mind. I struggle to build and maintain strong friendships, mainly because I find that there aren't many people that I find it easy to connect with. I love anything that makes an effect. So, for example, I've got a kettle in my house that lights up and changes colour once it's boiled. And I really like watching that every day when I boil the kettle. I once bought some powder that you put onto, you sprinkle it over a fire. I got it at Christmas time, and said that it was for my children, but I think secretly it was well, not secretly, but I think it was partly for my enjoyment too. And you pour the powder over the fire, and it changes the flames to like multicolored, so they light up and they change colour. And I thought that was amazing too, and I love that. Yeah, anything for effect. I remember there was a film called Blank Check when I was growing up, and there was a part in the film that I could watch over and over and over again. And it was when there's like a lady and a young lad, and they're in a like almost like a concreted area with water jets that spray up from the ground. So they're like running through and they keep spraying up at different times. And I really like the effect of that, and thinking, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to go and do something like that and run through lots of different water jets. So yeah, those sort of sensory things too as well really help. I think I've covered most of it in general. Obviously, I'm going to get on to school and how it affected me at school, and socially how I struggled at school now. So when I was younger, I always felt like I didn't fit in. I knew that I was different in some way, to the point that I actually thought there was something wrong with me, but I just couldn't understand or work out exactly what it was. But I knew that there was something different about me, and that made school really difficult, not knowing, not understanding why I found social situations really hard. But the reality of it is, I suppose there would have been so many other children at the time when I was at school, so that was about 20 years ago now, that would have been struggling in the same way, but just were undiagnosed, or just managed to hide it well. It wasn't apparent. They didn't display like obvious traits, or managed to mask it through school. And it makes you realise that although there's more awareness surrounding ASD now, it's still nowhere near where it needs to be or where it could be, and that there's no shame in having Asperges or autism or ADHD or whatever it might be, but just raising the awareness of it, and the fact that there are probably so many people out there that are on the spectrum that have struggled or still struggle day to day, that aren't being acknowledged in the way that they need to be. And I'm not saying that to be pig-headed. That's not what I mean. Feeling like you need, like in an attention-seeking way. That's not what I'm trying to get at. What I mean is that you almost gain some kind of you gain so much comfort and almost like some kind of acceptance in society when you understand and everything makes sense as to why you are the way you are. And I hope it encourages people to want to get that answer, whatever that might be, if they're concerned, or if they think that they may have some autistic traits and that it is affecting their life or their relationships or friendships in some way. So that's my intention for this video. So at school, I used to come home. I used to go to school and sort of like muddle through the day, and then come home in the evening, and I'd be in my room and I'd like talk aloud to myself in a frustrated way and slap my face because I just really struggled and didn't feel like I fitted in and didn't know what else to do, and that was like my instant reaction to just like slap my face. I would often try to sort of like isolate myself at school, but would feel just as anxious thinking that people were looking at me because I was on my own at school, or because I was because it was like obvious that I was trying to hide from other people and not sort of be noticed that I was on my own. However, I didn't ever want to be on my own, and I think that's quite often a misconception that some people have, is that children with autism or Asperges are quite okay being on their own, or they want to be on their own. They like playing on their own. I'm not sure if it's the same for everyone, but most certainly in my case, that wasn't the case at all. It was that I didn't ever want to be on my own, and I wasn't happy on my own. It's just that I found it hard to understand how to play, and I had limited interests or things in common with the majority of the other children at my school. So I would just kind of follow people around, mostly appearing to be coping with the social pressures of sort of break and lunch times. Though sort of like masking and not understanding myself for years eventually took its toll on my mental health. And that's why I sought diagnosis and almost like clarification. But I never wanted to be on my own, and I never wanted to feel lonely. On several occasions, I was picked on, and school was really difficult. And I just needed to find friends who understood me, but I didn't even know what it was myself. Like, I couldn't explain my feelings myself, and I had no idea what was going on, although I knew that something felt different and something wasn't right, and there was something that was almost getting in the way and making these friendships so difficult to maintain. But yeah, if there may well be some children that prefer playing on their own that have been diagnosed with autism or Asperger's, but please don't just assume that because they're on their own it means they're happy on their own or they want to be on their own, because that really wasn't. I felt just as anxious being on my own, knowing that people were looking at me and that I looked different for being on my own, as what I did when I was with my friends, sort of like just following them around. So it wasn't any different. It was just that I just needed to find common interests, and they were really hard to find. And also sort of like having structure at playtimes really helped as well. So like if there were maybe like games, and I'm not talking about so like if there are like clubs or games that you can become involved in, that can help to add structure to playtime. But again, obviously, like the social side of things is difficult. But I think that's the difference between sort of like primary and secondary, because at primary you have very structured playtimes where they get you involved in playing games and things, and then at secondary you kind of go on to just being left to your own devices to make conversation and maintain conversation, because you're that bit older that they kind of assume that you have sort of not as many interests in, I don't know, like skipping with a rope or what have you. So yeah, structure really helps playtimes as well. So that's how I found it at school socially, and that had a really huge impact on me. I really didn't enjoy school at all. Secondary school was really tough, really difficult. And at about 15, I began to become obsessive over my weight. So, like most teenagers, then I bought magazines, and the media gave me a very literal conception of what a female body shape should look like, or one that was sought after at least. And knowing that I had no control over my Asperges, though I didn't know that it was Asperges at the time, knowing that was going on and something wasn't quite right, but I had no control over it, I turned to starting to control my diet. And in my head, that seemed to help. The fact that I had something to focus and was able to control in my head, that for me, I thought that I was helping myself. However, because of my obsessive nature, it began to take over, and I found myself taking a high interest in like the nutritional values in food. So I was being strict with calories, saturated fat, and I was only 15. And I know for some people that become obsessive and controlling over food, it starts even younger than that, which is just awful, and it's really sad. But I did it because I felt like I had more control. But this nearly became a cause for concern in that when in the sixth form, my weight dropped significantly and I looked really unwell. Fortunately, others became aware of what I was doing and I managed to get it under control. And the only reason I'm telling you this, in no way at all am I promoting this as a coping strategy. So please do not think, oh, she did this and this helped. It didn't help, because all it did was give me another problem to deal with. So it didn't help at all. But why I'm bringing this to your attention is that I just thought that there could well be a link between eating disorders and ASD based on what I know and my own experiences. So it might be useful, having known what my traits are and what my personality is like, to be able to maybe identify anything in someone else, whether that's sort of a link between an eating disorder and ASD, or just ASD on its own, or what have you. But that's why I'm bringing it to your attention, because for me, I think it was directly linked to my ASD, and it was in my head a way of coping, and having control over something at school. However, like, to this day, I'm still funny with food. For example, like certain smells put me off eating certain things. I can't eat chicken without deveining it first, getting all like the blood off of the breast, and I'm funny about certain like textures of food. And I always make my tea in a particular order with the milk in first, which I've been told is a bit odd. I've always done that. Yeah, and just I think like a bit of advice when it comes to sort of like weight and change in body is like, just in general with girls at school, like growing up, from what I've learned, is that I think in any way that you can prepare girls about changes to their bodies, and to reassure them that like what's going to happen is normal and it's healthy for them to put on weight during puberty, and then hopefully they'll be able to sort of like better accept it when it does happen, and it will prepare them for it to happen. So I use the word accept because like change is still change, and no matter how prepared or assured you are, like as an Asperges child or adult, it's still likely to make you feel self-conscious or anxious, or like to be disruptive in some way. But it will at least help to minimize that and to reduce it, and also to highlight the dangers of eating disorders and how like the seriousness of them, and just to make them aware of the media, and not everyone's meant to look a certain way, and that it doesn't make someone more desirable because they're a certain size or anything like that. And I think the preparing a child for changes is particularly important when it comes to sort of like changing their bodies and stuff, because like you almost already feel like alien enough, if you like, knowing that you're feeling so different to your peers. So knowing that changes are normal and having a rough expectation of when they're likely to come is really important. Might be helpful, might not, but I thought I'd share that with you. So I first became aware of ASDs when I was working in school, and I began to relate and understand myself better, having supported children with similar struggles as to what I have now and did have whilst I was at school as well. And reaching out to the doctors and having now received my diagnosis has really helped. And as I said before, there's no shame in it at all. But it's offered me so much comfort and reassurance. And there must be so many other people out there who are living in silence or like confusion almost, and the not knowing must be really hard for them. And obviously, I know that obtaining a diagnosis is not miraculously going to get rid of your ASD, but it might provide you with the answer to what makes you you, and give you that explanation. I almost feel like accepted now, knowing that I am the way that I am for a reason. So as I'm sure that many people already know, autism and Asperges in girls is, for whatever reason, it's not recognised as much. There are many more males that have been diagnosed with autism, Asperges, in comparison to females. And I don't think that's because there are more males that tend to have Asperger's or autism. I think, or I believe, that it's because boys just tend to display more obvious or apparent traits, so it's more likely to be picked up on and detected whilst they're younger. And I think the main purpose of this video was to, one, hopefully, as I say, to be able to help other people that might need a bit of reassurance or are feeling a bit confused over sort of why they might be suffering with their mental health, or whether it could be linked to this or not. And also because just to spread awareness of Asperger's, and particularly in girls, because I think it often goes missed in school, and it would just be brilliant if people can have some more awareness, so that they can look out for other signs, not just sort of like behavioural issues, or that a child is falling behind academically with their learning, because they may be suffering in a different way, or maybe in fact just as much, but it can go unnoticed, unfortunately, if people don't have that awareness. So just I kind of just want to prevent it from happening. I know inevitably it's going to happen, but if I can begin that process to prevent it from happening again and again and again, to where children go through school and females go through school and it's not picked up, and to raise that awareness, that'd just be brilliant. So thank you for listening, and take care. Bye.